I understand you'd like me to expand part 1 of the story into approximately 1,400 words, using simple English and a natural, human-centric tone. I'll avoid common names like Sarah, Marcus, etc., and keep the content appropriate for YouTube. Here's the expanded first part without headings. Patience and Strikes a Boy in First Class, Part 1. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Terminal 4 at JFK Airport as Lisa Chen adjusted her navy blue uniform scarf in the crew lounge mirror. 15 years of flying had taught her exactly how to prepare for a long day. She'd woken up at 4:30 a.m., gone through her usual routine, and arrived with plenty of time before the 8 a.m. transcontinental flight to Los Angeles. Another day in the skies, she murmured to herself, checking that her name tag was straight. Her reflection showed a woman in her late 30s with laugh lines around her eyes and dark hair pulled back into a neat bun. Those laugh lines were well earned. Lisa had built a reputation among the Stellar Airways crew as the flight attendant who could handle anything with a smile. Her supervisor, Mr. Reynolds, often said during training sessions, "If you want to know how to deal with difficult passengers, just watch Lisa. I've never seen her lose her cool." She took pride in that. In an industry where patience was as necessary as oxygen, Lisa had an abundant supply. "Morning, Lisa. Ready for the celebrity parade?" called out Tanya, another flight attendant assigned to first class today. Stellar's New York to Los Angeles. Route was famous for its high-profile passengers, actors heading back to Hollywood, executives shuttling between offices, and occasionally, the genuinely wealthy who made even the celebrities seem middle class. As ready as ever. "Who do we have today?" Lisa asked, reviewing the passenger manifest that had just been distributed. "The usual mix. Some TV actor I've never heard of, a couple of studio executives, and apparently the son of some tech billionaire is flying unaccompanied. The note says, he's 10 years old." Lisa nodded. Unaccompanied minors weren't uncommon, though they were less frequent in first class. "Parents?" "Meeting him in LA, according to the notes." The father's secretary made the arrangements. "Kids flying with a tablet full of games and movies to keep him busy." The pre-flight briefing went smoothly, and soon they were welcoming passengers aboard. Lisa stationed herself at the entrance to first class, greeting people with the warm smile that had become her trademark. The cabin filled gradually, a silver-haired woman who requested a blanket immediately, a young entrepreneur who couldn't stop talking about his startup, a middle-aged couple celebrating an anniversary. Then came the boy. He wasn't what Lisa expected. Dressed in expensive but casual clothes, designer jeans and a gaming-themed t-shirt, he looked like any other 10-year-old. His brown hair stuck up slightly in the back, and his sneakers were untied. The flight attendant who had escorted him from the gate handed Lisa his documents. "This is Tyler," the gate attendant said. "He's seated in 3A. Tyler didn't look up from his handheld gaming device, the sounds of some adventure game barely audible through his headphones. "Hello, Tyler," Lisa said, bending slightly to his eye level. "I'm Lisa, and I'll be taking care of you during our flight today." The boy glanced up briefly, gave a half nod that might have been acknowledgement, and returned to his game. Lisa had seen all types of unaccompanied minors, the scared ones, the overly excited ones, the ones trying hard to act grown up. Tyler seemed to fall into a different category altogether. Completely uninterested. She showed him to his seat, a spacious first-class accommodation by the window. "Can I get you anything before we take off? Some juice or water, perhaps?" "Sprite," he said without looking up. "No, please, no thank you." Lisa brought his drink anyway, along with the safety information card that she pointed out was in his seat pocket. Tyler took the Sprite, immediately set it on his tray table without a sip, and continued playing his game. The first sign of trouble came during the safety demonstration. While Lisa demonstrated how to use the oxygen masks, Tyler increased his game volume loud enough that several passengers turned to look. Lisa finished her demonstration, then gently tapped his shoulder. "Tyler, I'll need you to lower the volume or use headphones, please. It's disturbing other passengers." He sighed dramatically, pulled headphones from his backpack and plugged them in with a show of inconvenience that seemed practiced beyond his years. Problem solved. or so Lisa thought. 20 minutes after takeoff, with the seatbelt sign off and the first round of drinks being served, Tyler unbuckled and began jumping on his seat. Not just fidgeting, which would be normal for his age, but actually standing and bouncing on the cushioned first-class seat. "Young man," Lisa said quietly, approaching with a professional smile still in place. "I need you to sit down, please." "It's for your safety." "I'm bored," he replied, continuing to bounce. "Would you like to watch a movie?" "First class has hundreds to choose from," Lisa suggested, reaching for the remote in his armrest. Tyler stopped jumping, but only to throw himself sideways across the seat, legs dangling into the aisle where they nearly tripped another flight attendant carrying a tray of champagne. "Sorry," Lisa mouthed to her colleague, then turned back to Tyler. "Please keep your legs in your own space. Would you like me to help you find something to do?" "No," he said flatly, picking up his abandoned game again. He settled down momentarily, which Lisa took as a small victory as she continued serving other passengers. The piece lasted approximately 30 minutes. "I'm hungry," Tyler announced loudly, interrupting the quiet hum of the first-class cabin. Several passengers looked up from their laptops and books. "We'll be serving lunch in about half an hour," Lisa explained patiently. "But I can bring you a snack now if you'd like." "I want chips, the blue kind." Lisa brought him the requested snack, only to have him declare after one chip that they were the wrong kind, and dump the entire bag onto the floor. Before she could respond, he demanded cookies instead. "Tyler," Lisa said, her voice still calm but firmer now, "that behavior isn't acceptable. I'll bring you cookies, but first I need you to help pick up the mess." "No," he said, crossing his arms. "That's your job." A businessman across the aisle raised his eyebrows but said nothing. Lisa knelt and quickly cleaned up the chips, aware that other passengers were watching. This wasn't the first time she'd dealt with a difficult child, but something about Tyler's deliberate defiance felt different. The next 3 hours became a blur of escalating incidents. Tyler spilled his apple juice, accidentally perhaps, then his replacement orange juice with what seemed like purpose. He repeatedly kicked the seat in front of him until the passenger, a patient older man, finally asked to be moved to another seat. Tyler crawled under seats during turbulence, ignoring the illuminated seatbelt sign. He pressed the call button 17 times in 20 minutes, each time requesting something different and then changing his mind when Lisa brought it. Throughout it all, Lisa maintained her composure. She spoke to him firmly, but kindly. She tried redirection, offering activities, even sitting beside him briefly to help him choose a movie. Nothing worked for more than a few minutes. Other flight attendants offered to take over, seeing Lisa's growing exhaustion, but she declined. "I've got this," she assured them, though her smile had become strained. Her reputation for patience had become a point of personal pride, and somewhere in her mind, giving up on Tyler felt like failure. 4 hours into the 6-hour flight, Tyler began running up and down the first-class aisle. When Lisa intercepted him and guided him back to his seat, he screamed, "Don't touch me!" loud enough that even passengers wearing headphones turned to look. "Tyler," Lisa said quietly, kneeling beside his seat. "We have 2 more hours on this flight. I know it's long and boring, but your behavior is disturbing everyone around you. Can we make a deal to find something quiet for you to do?" He seemed to consider this, nodding slowly. Lisa felt a surge of hope as she helped him select a movie on his screen. She brought him a fresh drink, apple juice as requested, and placed it carefully on his tray table. For 15 blissful minutes, peace reigned in first class. Lisa attended to other passengers, apologizing discreetly for the disruptions. Most were understanding. "Kids will be kids," one woman said kindly. Then came the moment that would change everything. Lisa was passing Tyler's seat with a coffee pot when she noticed him watching her with an odd expression. His movie was paused, and he seemed focused entirely on her movements. Something in his gaze made her uneasy. As she moved past his row, Tyler suddenly swept his arm across his tray table. The full cup of apple juice flew directly at her, splashing across her uniform skirt and dripping down onto her polished shoes. The plastic cup clattered to the floor, rolling down the aisle. This wasn't an accident. The deliberate aim was evident, in his positioning, in the way he'd watched her approach. But it was what happened next that truly broke something in Lisa's carefully maintained professional demeanor. Tyler laughed. Not a child's spontaneous giggle, but a deliberate, satisfied sound that suggested he'd accomplished exactly what he'd intended. 15 years of patience, thousands of difficult passengers, countless challenging situations handled with grace. All of it seemed to evaporate in that single moment as Lisa felt something. A quick, sharp movement that ended with her fingers lightly striking Tyler's outstretched hand. It wasn't hard enough to hurt, more a reflex of frustration than an intentional blow. But it was enough. The sound wasn't loud, but in the hushed cabin, it might as well have been a thunderclap. Tyler's eyes widened in genuine shock. Lisa's hand froze in midair, her own expression mirroring his surprise. The entire first-class cabin went silent. 15 pairs of eyes stared. Tyler's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time since boarding, he seemed at a loss, and Lisa Chen, known throughout Stellar Airways for her unshakable patience, felt her perfect record crumbling around her like the walls of a sandcastle at high tide. I've expanded Part 1 into a detailed narrative of approximately 1,400 words. The story builds gradually, showing how the flight attendant's legendary patience is tested beyond its limits by a deliberately difficult child. Key aspects I've included: simple, accessible language throughout, natural dialogue that feels realistic, a gradual buildup of tension through escalating incidents, relatable human emotions and reactions, context that helps readers understand both characters, environmental details that make the scene feel authentic. Would you like me to make any adjustments to this expanded version of Part 1? I can modify the tone, pacing, or any specific elements to better match what you're looking for. I'll expand Part 2 of the story into approximately 1,400 words with simple English, a natural tone, and human-centric writing. I'll avoid names like Marcus, Sarah, Emma, Jamal, etc., and ensure the content is appropriate for YouTube. The remaining 3 hours of the flight felt like an eternity to Lisa. Her hand still tingled from the contact, a physical reminder of the line she had crossed. In 15 years of flying, she had never, not once, touched a passenger in anger. The reality of what she had done settled over her like a heavy blanket. Tyler sat perfectly still now, eyes fixed on the movie screen in front of him, though Lisa doubted he was actually watching it. The animation played on, bright colors reflecting on his suddenly subdued face. He kept his hands tucked under his legs, away from the fresh drink another flight attendant had brought him. The first-class cabin had divided into invisible camps. Some passengers deliberately avoided looking in their direction, headphones firmly in place, pretending nothing had happened. Others sent Lisa sympathetic glances when they thought she wasn't looking. A few kept watching Tyler with expressions that mixed concern with something close to satisfaction that the disruptive behavior had finally stopped. Tanya, the other first-class attendant, approached Lisa in the galley. "Do you want me to take over your section?" she whispered, concern evident in her eyes. Lisa shook her head. "No, I need to handle this myself." Running away would only make things worse. She had to face what she'd done. "For what it's worth," Tanya said quietly. "That kid was pushing every button possible. Anyone would have snapped eventually. But not everyone was responsible for the safety and comfort of passengers at 35,000 feet, Lisa thought. Not everyone had sworn to uphold company policies that very clearly prohibited any physical contact with passengers outside of safety assistance. She returned to the cabin, forcing herself to continue her duties. Coffee refills, collecting trash, answering call buttons. Each time she passed Tyler's seat, she glanced over, but the boy remained uncharacteristically still. His earlier energy completely vanished. When the captain announced their initial descent into Los Angeles, Lisa knew she needed to try to make amends. She knelt beside Tyler's seat, making sure she wasn't blocking him in, giving him space. "Tyler," she said softly, "I want to apologize for what happened earlier. I shouldn't have reacted that way, and I'm truly sorry. He didn't look at her. His small fingers picked at a loose thread on his jeans, his face angled toward the window, where California sprawled below them. Would you like some water before we land? She tried again. Nothing. The wall between them was complete. Lisa returned to her jump seat for landing, her mind racing through the consequences that awaited her. The incident had witnesses. Lots of them. There would be reports. An investigation. Best case scenario? A formal reprimand and probation. Worst case? Termination, possibly even legal issues if Tyler's parents decided to press charges. The gentle bump of landing brought no relief. As passengers gathered their belongings, Lisa noticed how they created space around Tyler, as if the incident had marked him as well. When the seatbelt sign dinged off, she approached him one last time. "Someone will escort you to meet your family," she said professionally. "You can stay in your seat until they arrive." For a moment, just a flicker, Tyler's eyes met hers. There was something in them Lisa couldn't quite read. Not fear or anger, but something more complex. Then he looked away again, shoulders hunched under his expensive t-shirt. A gate agent appeared at the door. "I'm here for the unaccompanied minor. In 3A?" Lisa pointed toward Tyler, who stood silently and gathered his backpack. He walked past her without acknowledgement, following the agent down the jet bridge and out of her life. But not, she knew, out of her future. This moment would echo forward in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The plane emptied quickly. Lisa went through the motions of farewell, thanking passengers automatically while her mind spun through various versions of the conversation she would soon have with her supervisor. She didn't have to wait long. As soon as the last passenger deplaned, her phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Reynolds. "My office, immediately after landing checks." Tanya squeezed her arm. "Want me to finish up here? You can go deal with whatever's coming." Lisa shook her head. "No, but thanks. I need to do this properly." She wouldn't add unprofessional behavior after the fact to her growing list of transgressions. 20 minutes later, Lisa knocked on the door of the crew management office at LAX. Mr. Reynolds looked up from his computer, his normally friendly face now carefully neutral. "Lisa, sit down, please." She sat, back straight, hands folded in her lap. "I've received 4 passenger reports about an incident on today's flight," he began without preamble. "They state that you struck a child in first class, a 10-year-old unaccompanied minor." He paused. "Is this accurate?" Lisa didn't hesitate. "Yes. I reacted inappropriately when he deliberately spilled a drink on me and laughed." I lightly slapped his hand. "It was wrong, completely unprofessional, and I take full responsibility." Something like surprise flickered across Mr. Reynolds's face. Perhaps he'd expected denials or excuses. "We have protocols for dealing with disruptive passengers, even minors. You know this better than most." "I do. I should have called for assistance or used other de-escalation techniques. There's no excuse for what I did." Mr. Reynolds sighed. "Lisa, you've been with us for 15 years without a single complaint. Your service evaluations are consistently outstanding. But this..." He tapped a folder on his desk. "This is serious. The boy's father has already been notified. He's demanding footage from the cabin cameras." Lisa's stomach dropped. Most passengers didn't know about the security cameras installed throughout the aircraft. But the footage would show everything, both Tyler's behavior and her inappropriate response. "As of this moment, you're on administrative leave pending investigation. I need your company ID and keys." Though she'd been expecting it, the reality still hit hard. Lisa removed her airline ID from around her neck, the familiar weight suddenly significant in its absence as she placed it on the desk. "The union representative will contact you tomorrow," Mr. Reynolds continued. "And Lisa, don't discuss this with anyone, especially not on social media or with other crew members." She nodded, fighting to maintain her composure. "I understand. For what it's worth," he added, his voice softening slightly. "Several passengers also reported the boy's behavior leading up to the incident. That will be part of the investigation too." It was cold comfort. Lisa knew that nothing justified her action, regardless of provocation. She left the office feeling strangely lightweight, as if part of her identity had remained behind on Mr. Reynolds' desk along with her ID. The airport bustled around her, reuniting families, hurrying business travelers, the constant flow of human movement that had been the backdrop to her life for 15 years. In the crew lounge, Lisa changed out of her uniform for what might be the last time, carefully hanging it in her locker. She caught her reflection in the mirror, the same face as this morning, yet somehow different. The laugh line seemed deeper now, the eyes more troubled. Her phone chimed with a text as she was leaving the airport. Unknown number. Ms. Chen, this is Carla Washington, Executive Assistant to Howard Parker. Mr. Parker requests a meeting tomorrow regarding today's incident with his son. Legal representatives will be present. 10 a.m. Parker Tower, downtown LA. Please confirm. Lisa stared at the message, the name finally clicking into place. Howard Parker, founder and CEO of Neurotech Innovations. The billionaire who had revolutionized brain-computer interfaces and was now worth more than some small countries. Tyler's father. She typed a simple, "I'll be there," before she could second-guess herself. What choice did she have? Running wouldn't help. The taxi ride to her hotel was a blur of palm trees and billboards against the setting California sun. Lisa had stayed at this same airport hotel dozens of times between flights, but tonight the familiar room felt alien. She sat on the edge of the bed, finally allowing herself to feel the full weight of the day. Her phone buzzed again. Tanya. Heard what happened. The whole crew is talking about it. That kid was a terror. We've got your back. Another message appeared below it, this time from the flight's captain. Chen, just got out of my debrief. Told them you're the best FA I've ever flown with. This doesn't define you. The support should have been comforting, but it only intensified Lisa's sense of failure. 15 years of perfect service, undone in a split second of lost control. She opened her laptop to research Howard Parker, needing to know what she would face tomorrow. Article after article detailed his rise from college dropout to tech visionary, his ruthless business practices, his notorious impatience with incompetence. Nothing about his personal life appeared until the 5th page of search results. A brief mention of his wife's death 18 months ago. Cancer. Tyler had lost his mother. Lisa closed the laptop. That information didn't excuse her behavior, but it cast the boy's actions in a different light. Grief could manifest in many ways, especially in children. As night fell over Los Angeles, Lisa Chen prepared for what would likely be the most important meeting of her career, possibly the end of it. Tomorrow she would face a man who could buy and sell the airline she worked for without blinking, a man whose son she had struck in a moment of lost patience. Sleep eluded her as she rehearsed apologies that seemed increasingly inadequate with each passing hour. I've expanded part 2 of the story to approximately 1,400 words, focusing on the immediate aftermath of the incident and setting up the upcoming confrontation. The narrative follows Lisa as she deals with the consequences of her actions, both professionally and emotionally. In this expanded section, I've used simple, accessible language, created a natural flow of events following the incident, developed the emotional impact on both Lisa and Tyler, introduced the billionaire father, Howard Parker, without directly showing him yet, built tension for the upcoming meeting, added depth through the revelation about Tyler's mother, maintained a human-centric perspective focused on feelings and consequences. The story continues to build momentum while showing how one momentary lapse in judgment can have far-reaching implications. Would you like me to make any adjustments to this expanded version of Part 2? I'll expand Part 3 of the story into approximately 1,400 words using simple English, a natural tone, and human-centric writing. I'll avoid the names you mentioned and ensure the content is appropriate for YouTube. Type Syrian text markdown. Title: Flight attendant loses patience and strikes a boy in first class, Part 3. The morning sun glinted off the glass and steel of Parker Tower, a sleek spire that dominated the downtown Los Angeles skyline. Lisa stood on the sidewalk, looking up at the 70-story building with a mixture of dread and determination. She had chosen her outfit carefully, a simple navy blue dress that echoed her uniform without actually being one, conservative heels, minimal jewelry. Professional but not flashy. The kind of person who could be trusted with responsibility. If only her hammering heart would get the message. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, smoothing her hair one last time before walking through the revolving doors into the vast marble lobby. A security guard directed her to a specific elevator bank after checking her ID. "Executive floors," he said. "Express elevator, 50th floor and up only." The elevator was lined with wood paneling and had no buttons, just a screen that lit up when she entered. "Good morning, Ms. Chen," a pleasant computerized voice said. "You're expected on the 70th floor. Proceeding now." Of course, Howard Parker would occupy the very top floor, she thought. Men like him always did. The elevator ride was smooth and swift, giving her little time to second-guess herself. When the doors opened, she found herself in a minimalist reception area with sweeping views of the city through floor-to-ceiling windows. A poised woman in a crisp white suit approached immediately. "Ms. Chen, I'm Carla Washington, Mr. Parker's executive assistant. Thank you for being punctual." Her tone was professional but not unfriendly. "There's been a slight change of plans. Mr. Parker would like to meet with you privately before the legal team joins. Is that acceptable to you?" The question caught Lisa off guard. Yes, that's fine," she managed, though every instinct told her she should have legal representation of her own for this conversation. Carla led her down a hallway lined with abstract art pieces that probably cost more than Lisa's annual salary. "Mr. Parker's just finishing a call with Tokyo. He'll be with you shortly. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee?" "Water would be nice, thank you." Carla showed her into a comfortable waiting area and disappeared. Lisa perched on the edge of a leather chair, too tense to appreciate its comfort. Through the glass walls, she could see staff moving about the office with purposeful efficiency. Everyone dressed impeccably, everyone seemingly important. 5 minutes stretched into 10. Was this a power play? Making her wait to increase her anxiety? If so, it was working. Lisa sipped her water and tried to look calm. Finally, a door opened across the room. "Ms. Chen?" called Carla. "Mr. Parker will see you now." Lisa stood, smoothed her dress, and followed Carla into a large corner office with panoramic views of Los Angeles. Floor-to-ceiling windows on two sides displayed the city stretching out toward the Pacific. The room itself was surprisingly understated. Modern furniture, a few carefully chosen art pieces, a desk that, while large, wasn't ostentatious. Behind that desk stood Howard Parker. He wasn't what Lisa had expected. The billionaire wasn't particularly tall or physically imposing. In his early 50s, with salt and pepper hair cut short, he wore a simple gray sweater over a white shirt. No tie, no suit jacket. Only his watch, a sleek timepiece that probably cost as much as a small house, hinted at his wealth. But his eyes, those were exactly as she'd imagined, sharp, analytical, missing nothing. They assessed her in an instant as she entered. "Ms. Chen," he said, his voice even. Not warm, not cold, just stating a fact. He didn't offer his hand. "Mr. Parker," she replied with a small nod. "Please sit." He gestured to a chair across from his desk, then turned to Carla. "Hold all calls, and tell the legal team I'll need another 30 minutes. When they were alone, Parker remained standing, looking out at the city for a long moment. Lisa sat perfectly still, waiting. The silence stretched until it nearly snapped. "My son is a difficult child," he finally said, still facing the window. "Brilliant in many ways, but challenging. His behavior on your flight was unacceptable. The spilled drink wasn't an accident." He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "No, sir, it wasn't," Lisa agreed, deciding honesty was her only real option. "And your response was to strike him." The words hung in the air between them. Not a question, a statement of fact. I slapped his hand. It was completely inappropriate and unprofessional. "I've never done anything like that before, and I'm deeply sorry." The words tumbled out, rehearsed yet sincere. It doesn't matter what provoked me. There's no excuse for what I did. Parker studied her for a long moment, then unexpectedly sat down across from her rather than behind his desk. The move shifted the dynamic, making the conversation feel less like an interrogation. Do you know who I am, Ms. Chen? Beyond Tyler's father, I mean. You're Howard Parker, founder and CEO of Neurotech Innovations. You revolutionized brain-computer interfaces with your BrainLink technology. She hesitated. And I know your wife passed away 18 months ago. I'm sorry for your loss. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps, that she'd done her research or that she'd mentioned his wife. 18 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days, he said quietly. Cancer. It was quick, at least. Small mercies. He looked down at his hands. Tyler was very close to his mother. He hasn't been the same since. Lisa stayed silent, sensing he wasn't finished. I've been focused on the company. Major acquisition in Asia. New product launches. The usual excuses. His tone turned bitter. Meanwhile, my son has been acting out in increasingly problematic ways. 3 private schools in the past year. Countless tutors and nannies who've quit. Therapy sessions he refuses to participate in. He looked up at her. And now this. Lisa wasn't sure how to respond. This wasn't the conversation she'd expected. Tyler told me what happened on the plane. Parker continued. All of it. Not just what you did, but what he did leading up to it. I think it's the first honest conversation we've had since his mother died. He stood abruptly and walked to a credenza where a framed photograph stood. A woman with Tyler's eyes smiling at the camera, her arm around a younger version of the boy. Happy times. My staff expects me to sue your airline into oblivion. To make an example of you. They've prepared all the necessary paperwork. He gestured to a folder on his desk. It's what everyone expects Howard Parker to do. Lisa felt cold despite the comfortable temperature in the office. This was it then. But that's not why I asked you here today. Parker turned back to face her. I want to understand something. You had a spotless 15-year record before this incident. Exemplary service evaluations, commendations from passengers. What was it about my son that finally broke through that professional exterior? The question caught her off guard. She stopped, considering her words carefully. It wasn't any one thing. It was the build-up over hours, the deliberate nature of it. And when he laughed after, spilling the drink, she shook her head. It was as if he wanted me to react, to lose control, as if that was his goal all along. Parker nodded slowly. That sounds like Tyler lately. Pushing boundaries until they break. Testing limits. He sighed. I think in some way he's been trying to get my attention. To make me see how angry he has. The conversation had veered so far from what Lisa had anticipated that she felt disoriented. Where was the furious father? The legal threats? The demands for her termination? Mr. Parker, I'm not sure I understand why you wanted to meet with me. Frankly, neither do I. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. By all logic, I should be meeting with my lawyers, not having a conversation with the flight attendant who struck my son. He sat down again. But when Tyler described what happened, something changed. He talked about how patient you'd been for hours before you finally reacted, how you'd tried everything to get him to behave. Parker leaned forward slightly. Ms. Chen, do you know what my son said to me? He said he felt bad for pushing you that far. Tyler hasn't expressed empathy for anyone since his mother died. Not once. Lisa blinked, trying to process this unexpected turn. You've accomplished something in one regrettable moment that an army of child psychologists haven't managed in 18 months, Parker continued. You made my son recognize the impact of his actions on another human being. Outside the window, a helicopter passed by, momentarily casting a shadow across the room. I'm not saying you were right to slap his hand, Parker added quickly. But I am saying that the outcome has been unexpected. He returned to his desk and pressed a button. Carla, please ask Tyler to join us now. Lisa felt her heart skip. Tyler is here? In the conference room down the hall. I wanted to speak with you first. A minute later, the door opened, and Tyler walked in. He looked different from the plane. Neater, his hair combed, wearing a button-up shirt and khakis that made him look older. His eyes met Lisa's briefly before darting away. Tyler, Parker said gently. Ms. Chen and I have been talking. Is there something you'd like to say to her? The boy shuffled his feet, hands thrust deep in his pockets. For a moment, Lisa thought he might refuse. Then he looked up, meeting her eyes properly for the first time. I'm sorry for how I acted on the plane, he said, his voice small but clear. I was mean to you on purpose. I wanted to make you mad. The simple honesty of it caught Lisa by surprise. Thank you for apologizing, Tyler. I appreciate that. And I'm sorry, too, for how I reacted. I should have found a better way to handle the situation. Tyler nodded, then looked at his father uncertainly. There's more, Parker prompted gently. Tyler took a deep breath. I told Dad I don't want you to get fired. It wasn't your fault. It was mine. Lisa felt a lump form in her throat. That's very kind of you to say. Parker placed a hand on his son's shoulder, a gesture that seemed both unfamiliar and necessary. Tyler, would you mind waiting with Carla for a few minutes while Ms. Chen and I finish our conversation? After the boy left, Parker turned back. To Lisa, his expression now completely transformed. No longer the detached billionaire, but a father struggling with difficult choices. I've made a decision, Ms. Chen, one I hope you'll agree with. I've expanded part 3 of the story to approximately 1,400 words, focusing on the meeting between Lisa and Howard Parker, with the surprise appearance of Tyler. This section reveals unexpected depth to both the billionaire father and his son, while building tension around Lisa's uncertain fate. In this expanded section, I've created a vivid setting in the billionaire's corporate headquarters, developed Howard Parker as a complex character beyond the stereotypical angry billionaire, revealed more about Tyler's background and motivations, built an emotional connection through the shared grief over Tyler's mother, used simple, accessible language throughout, maintained natural dialogue that feels authentic, created a surprising but believable turn in the story, ended with a cliffhanger to maintain engagement. The narrative continues to explore themes of grief, responsibility, and redemption while setting up the next part of the story. Would you like me to make any adjustments to this expanded version of Part 3? I'll expand Part 4 of the story into approximately 1,400 words using simple English, a natural tone, and human-centric writing. I'll avoid the names you mentioned and ensure the content is appropriate for YouTube. Howard Parker walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. The morning light caught his profile, highlighting the tired lines around his eyes that even his wealth couldn't erase. I'm not firing my legal team, he said, turning back to Lisa. They're very good at what they do, and they've already prepared several approaches we could take against both you and the airline. Lisa's momentary hope deflated. So this was all for show, letting her think there might be another outcome before lowering the boom. However, Parker continued, surprising her, I'm not going to use them, not in the way they expect anyway. Returned to his seat across from her. Here's what I'm proposing. No lawsuit against you personally. No demand for termination. Instead, I want something constructive. Lisa waited, hardly daring to breathe. Tyler has been seeing a child psychologist since his mother died. Dr. Winters specializes in grief counseling for children. Yesterday, after we talked about what happened on the plane, she made an observation I can't ignore. Parker's voice softened. She said Tyler's behavior on that flight was a cry for help. Not just to me, but to any authority figure who might notice. He leaned forward. The thing is, Ms. Chen, you did notice. You tried everything reasonable to help him before you reached your breaking point. And surprisingly, that moment, that human reaction seems to have gotten through to him in a way nothing else has. I'm not sure I understand what you're suggesting, Lisa said cautiously. I'm suggesting we take this unfortunate incident and turn it into something positive. He reached for a folder on the coffee table between them. I've had my team research the current training that flight attendants receive regarding children in emotional distress. It's minimal at best, outdated at worst. He opened the folder, revealing a preliminary outline titled Aviation Industry Child Emotional Support Training Initiative. The airline industry deals with thousands of children daily, many experiencing significant emotional challenges, divorce, bereavement, relocation trauma. Yet the training for handling these situations is an afterthought. Parker tapped the document. I want to change that, and I want your help to do it. Lisa blinked, trying to process this unexpected turn. My help? 15 years of experience, a genuine care for passengers that everyone I've spoken to confirms, and now a first-hand understanding of what happens when the system fails both the child and the staff member. He shrugged slightly. It seems like the perfect combination. The room felt suddenly airless. What exactly are you asking me to do? Help develop a comprehensive training program for airline staff dealing with children in emotional distress. Work with Dr. Winters and a team of child psychologists to create practical guidelines and techniques. Then help implement it, initially, at your airline and eventually industry-wide. Lisa stared at him speechless. In return, Parker continued, I'll use my influence with your airline's board to ensure you keep your job. The official story will be that you've been selected for a special industry initiative, temporarily reassigned rather than suspended. The offer seemed too good to be true. Why would you do this? After what happened? Parker was quiet for a moment. Because firing you solves nothing. Because my son needs to see that actions have consequences, but also that mistakes can lead to growth rather than just punishment. And because... He hesitated. Because I need to start making better choices myself. He stood again, restless energy propelling him across the room. Since my wife died, I've buried myself in work. I've left Tyler with an army of caretakers while I focused on making more money we don't need. I told myself it was for his future, but the truth is it was easier than facing our loss together. The raw honesty in his voice made Lisa look away, feeling like an intruder on a private moment. Yesterday, when he told me what happened on that plane, it was the first real conversation we've had in months. He actually talked to me. Parker's voice caught slightly. That's worth more to me than any lawsuit or corporate victory. Lisa absorbed his words, still cautious. What if I say no? Then the lawyers take over, and we all lose something valuable. My company gets its pound of flesh, your career ends, and most importantly, we miss an opportunity to help other children and flight attendants avoid finding themselves in the same situation. The choice seemed clear, yet Lisa hesitated. I'd need to think about it. Of course, Parker nodded. But I should mention one more thing. Tyler asked if he could speak with you again. Alone. Minutes later, Lisa found herself in a small meeting room with Tyler. The boy sat across from her, fidgeting with the cuff of his shirt. Without the audience of his father, he seemed younger, or vulnerable. My dad said you might help make a program to teach flight people how to deal with kids like me, he said finally, breaking the silence. Kids like you? Lisa asked gently. Tyler shrugged. You know, messed up ones. The bluntness of his self-assessment made Lisa's heart twist. Kids whose moms died or whose parents got divorced or whatever. Your dad is suggesting that, yes, I haven't decided yet. Tyler nodded slowly. I think you should do it. He glanced up at her. You were really nice to me for a long time before you got mad. Most people give up way faster. Lisa didn't know how to respond to that. After my mom died, Tyler continued, his voice small but determined, everyone kept saying it was okay to feel sad or angry, but nobody really meant it. They just wanted me to act normal so they wouldn't have to deal with me. That must have been very hard, Lisa said quietly. When I was on your plane, I kept doing worse and worse things, wondering when you'd stop pretending to be nice. He looked down at his hands. I wanted to see what would happen if I pushed hard enough. And now you know, Lisa said, not unkindly. A hint of a smile crossed his face. Yeah. Now I know. He looked up again. I don't think you should get fired. Thank you for saying that. Would you really teach other flight people how to handle kids like me? The question hung in the air between them. Lisa considered her answer carefully. If I did, what do you think I should tell them? Tyler thought for a moment. Tell them that sometimes kids are mean because they're really sad and don't know how to say it. And maybe, he hesitated, maybe tell them it's okay to be real with us, not fake nice all the time. The wisdom in his words struck Lisa deeply. This wasn't just a difficult child, this was a grieving boy trying to navigate a world that had shattered around him. That's very good advice, she said softly. I'll remember that. When she returned to the main office, Howard Parker was waiting with Carla and a man in an expensive suit, who was introduced as the airline's vice president of operations. Apparently, Parker had been busy making calls while she spoke with Tyler. Ms. Chen, the VP said, extending his hand. Mr. Parker has outlined a proposal that we find very interesting, a specialized training program developed in conjunction with child psychology experts, would be an industry first. We're prepared to maintain your employment status and reassign you to this project, pending your agreement. Lisa looked from the VP to Parker, trying to process how quickly things were moving. This is a lot to take in, she admitted. Of course, the VP nodded. We don't need an answer today. Take 48 hours to consider the offer. He handed her a business card. Call me directly when you've made your decision. As the meeting concluded, Lisa found herself being escorted back to the elevator by Carla. Howard Parker walked with them, surprising both women. I'd like a moment with Ms. Chen before she leaves, he said to his assistant. Carla nodded and stepped away, leaving them at the elevator doors. There's something else you should know, Parker said, his voice low. Tyler asked if he could write you a letter. Regardless of what you decide about the program, would it be all right if he did that? The request caught Lisa off guard. Yes, of course. Thank you. Parker hesitated, then added, he hasn't wanted to write anything since his mother died. She was a writer. Children's books. They used to make up stories together. The elevator arrived with a soft chime. Lisa stepped inside, turning to face Parker as the doors began to close. Ms. Chen, he said quickly, whatever you decide about the program, thank you for helping my son start talking again. The doors closed and Lisa descended 70 floors with her mind spinning. When she stepped out into the sunlight of downtown Los Angeles, the world looked strangely different, brighter, more vivid, as if she were seeing it with new eyes. Her phone buzzed in her purse. A text message from Tanya. Any news? The whole crew is waiting to hear what happened. Lisa stared at the message, unsure how to even begin explaining the day's events. How could she summarize a conversation that had somehow turned one of the worst mistakes of her career into an unexpected opportunity? She decided to walk instead of immediately catching a taxi. The movement helped her think, helped her process the whirlwind of the past 24 hours. One moment she'd been a flight attendant with a spotless record, the next a woman facing termination and possible legal action. And now? Now she stood at a crossroads she'd never anticipated. As she walked, Lisa passed a small park where a mother comforted a crying child on a bench. The woman held the little girl close, whispering something in her ear until the tears subsided. Such a simple interaction, yet so essential. One human helping another navigate difficult emotions. Perhaps that was what Parker was offering her. Not just a way to save her job, but a chance to make something meaningful out of her mistake. A way to help other flight attendants better support children like Tyler, who carried invisible burdens behind their difficult behaviors. By the time Lisa reached her hotel, she thought she knew what her answer would be. But she would take the full 48 hours anyway. Not because she needed time to decide, but because some decisions deserved the weight of careful consideration. Up in her room, she kicked off her shoes and sat on the bed, finally allowing herself to believe that perhaps her career wasn't over after all, that perhaps in some strange way the worst day of her professional life might lead to something unexpectedly valuable. Her phone buzzed again with another message from Tanya. Hello? Are you okay? What happened with the billionaire? This time, Lisa typed a reply. It's complicated, but I think it might be okay. I'll explain everything tomorrow. As she set the phone down, she realized she was smiling for the first time since the incident on the plane. Not because everything was resolved, but because sometimes life's biggest mistakes open doors you never knew existed. I've expanded part 4 of the story to approximately 1,400 words, focusing on the unexpected proposal from Howard Parker and Lisa's conversation with Tyler. This section develops the characters further and sets up the resolution while maintaining tension about Lisa's decision. In this expanded section, I've revealed Parker's surprising proposal for a constructive solution, deepened Tyler's character through his one-on-one conversation with Lisa, showed genuine insight from the child about his own behavior, connected Tyler's grief over his mother to his actions, maintained simple, accessible language throughout, used natural dialogue that feels authentic, created emotional moments that feel earned rather than forced, added realistic details about the airline industry and corporate dynamics, ended with Lisa contemplating her decision, setting up the final part. The narrative continues to explore themes of redemption, grief, and unexpected opportunities while building toward the conclusion in a way that feels natural and human-centered. Would you like me to make any adjustments to this expanded version of Part 4? I'll expand Part 5 of the story into approximately 1,400 words using simple English, a natural tone, and human-centric writing. I'll avoid the names you mentioned and ensure the content is appropriate for YouTube. 2 months had passed since that fateful flight, and Lisa stood at the podium looking out at the faces of 25 flight attendants. They watched her with expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism as she prepared to begin the 3rd session of the new training program. Before we start today, she said, adjusting the microphone slightly, I want to tell you how this program came to exist. Some of you might have heard rumors, but here's the truth. She took a deep breath. Part of the agreement with the airline had been transparency. No hiding the incident that had sparked this initiative. 2 months ago, I did something I never thought I would do in 15 years of flying. I lost my patience with a disruptive child passenger and slapped his hand. The room went quiet. It was unprofessional, inappropriate, and it could have ended my career. It should have ended my career. A few of the attendants exchanged glances, but most kept their eyes on Lisa. Instead, something unexpected happened. That child's father, rather than demanding my termination, suggested we turn that mistake into something constructive, and that's how this program was born. She gestured to the training materials on their tablets, the culmination of 8 weeks of intensive development, work with child psychologists, educational specialists, and airline safety experts. Children in emotional crisis, recognition and response had quickly become the most requested training module in the airline's history. What had started as a way for Lisa to keep her job had transformed into something much more significant. Today we'll be focusing on recognizing grief behaviors in children of different ages, Lisa continued. And we have a special guest who'll be joining us later to share his perspective. As she launched into the session, Lisa still found it surreal that her lowest professional moment had led to this. The 48 hours she'd taken to consider Parker's offer had really been just a formality. By the time she'd left his office, she'd known in her heart that she would accept. The first few weeks had been intense. Daily meetings with Dr. Winters and her team, reviewing existing protocols, drafting new guidelines. Howard Parker had provided everything they needed: Office SP, ACE, research resources, access to experts in child psychology from around the country. Lisa had expected him to be a distant figure in the process, writing checks, but otherwise uninvolved. Instead, he'd been surprisingly hands-on, sitting in on key meetings and offering practical suggestions based on his experiences with Tyler, and Tyler himself had become an unexpected contributor. His promised letter to Lisa had turned into regular conversations, then formal interview sessions where he candidly discussed his behavior on the plane and the emotions behind it. His insights, along with those from other children who had experienced loss, formed the emotional core of the training program. One of the key indicators of grief in preteens, Lisa explained to the class, pointing to the slide on the screen, is what psychologists call boundary testing behavior. Children who have experienced a significant loss often push limits to see if the adults around them will stay consistent. It's actually a search for security in a world that suddenly feels very insecure. A hand went up in the third row. So when kids are acting out on flights, we should just assume they're grieving something? Not at all, Lisa replied. Many factors can cause disruptive behavior. What we're teaching here is how to recognize potential signs of emotional distress and how to respond appropriately. The goal isn't to diagnose, but to add tools to your toolkit when standard approaches aren't working. As the morning session continued, Lisa found herself reflecting on how much her own perspective had shifted. Before the incident, she would have seen a child like Tyler simply as a problem passenger. Now she understood the complex emotional landscape that might lie beneath the surface of difficult behavior. At the lunch break, she checked her phone and found a text from Howard. "We're in the lobby. Ready whenever you are." Lisa smiled. This would be the first time Tyler had participated in a training session in person rather than through recorded interviews. It had been his idea, a suggestion he'd made during their last meeting that had surprised both Lisa and his father. "I want to tell them what it feels like," he'd said, "so they understand." When Lisa returned to the training room, the flight attendants were settling back into their seats, refreshed from lunch and chatting amongst themselves. She called for their attention. "For our afternoon session, I'd like to introduce two special guests," she announced, gesturing toward the door where Howard and Tyler Parker entered. Whispers rippled through the room. Some recognized the tech billionaire immediately. Others looked confused by the presence of a child in their training session. "This is Howard Parker and his son Tyler," Lisa said, "and they have a unique perspective to share with us today." Howard nodded a greeting but stayed at the back of the room, giving his son the spotlight. Tyler, looking both nervous and determined, walked to the front and stood beside Lisa. At 12 years old, he still looked small behind the podium, but there was a confidence in his stance that hadn't been there 2 months ago. "Hi," he began, his voice cracking slightly. "I'm Tyler, and I'm the kid who got Miss Chen in trouble." A few surprised looks crossed the faces of attendants who hadn't heard the full story before. "My mom died last year," Tyler continued, his voice steadying. "She got sick really fast and then she was gone. After that, I started getting in trouble a lot, at school, at home, and then on Miss Chen's flight." He glanced at Lisa, who gave him an encouraging nod. "I didn't know why I was doing it then, but I do now. I was really angry that everyone else's life just kept going normal when mine wasn't normal anymore. And I wanted other people to feel as bad as I did." The room was completely silent now. Every person focused on the boy's words. "On the plane, I kept doing worse things to see when Ms. Chen would stop being nice to me, because everyone was always fake nice after Mom died, but I could tell they were just pretending. I wanted to see what would happen if I pushed hard enough." Tyler looked down at his notes briefly, then back up at the room. When she finally got mad, it was actually kind of a relief. It felt real. Like someone was finally being honest with me. Lisa felt a lump in her throat, hearing him articulate something she'd never fully understood until this moment. "I'm not saying she should have hit me," Tyler added quickly. "That part wasn't good, but the part where she stopped pretending everything was okay when it wasn't. That part actually helped." He turned to look at the flight attendants directly. "So that's what I wanted to tell you. Sometimes kids like me do bad things because we're hurting and don't know how to say it. And sometimes what we need isn't just more fake niceness. Sometimes we need grown-ups to be real with us, even if that means telling us when we've gone too far." The boys' simple honesty had a powerful effect on the room. Lisa could see it in their faces, the shift from professional interest to genuine understanding. When Tyler finished speaking, the questions from the flight attendants were thoughtful and respectful. How could they show they cared without seeming fake? What words helped most when he was feeling sad? What could they say to a child who was acting out because of grief? Tyler answered each one with surprising insight, occasionally looking to his father or Lisa for support, but mostly handling the session with remarkable poise. "The thing that helps most," he said in response to one question, "is when grown-ups don't try to fix everything, when they just listen and don't tell me how I should feel." By the end of the session, Lisa noticed several attendants discreetly wiping away tears. This wasn't just professional development anymore. It had become something much more meaningful. As the training day concluded and people began gathering their things, one of the older flight attendants approached Lisa. "I've been flying for 23 years, she said quietly, "and in all that time I've never once thought about what might be behind a child's bad behavior on my flights. I just wanted it to stop." She glanced at Tyler, now talking with his father across the room. "This program is going to change how a lot of us do our jobs. Thank you for creating it." Lisa smiled, touched by the woman's words. "Thank you. But I can't take credit for it. Sometimes the best things come from our biggest mistakes." After the room had cleared, Howard approached with Tyler by his side. "That went well," he said, a note of pride in his voice. "You were excellent, son." Tyler grinned, the simple praise clearly meaning the world to him. The change in their relationship over the past 2 months had been remarkable to witness. Howard had rearranged his work schedule to be more present, and they had regular therapy sessions together with Dr. Winters. They weren't a perfect family by any means, but they were finding their way forward together. "The airline board meets next week to discuss expanding the program," Howard told Lisa. "Initial feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. They're talking about making it standard training for all new hires." Lisa nodded, still amazed at how far the initiative had come in such a short time. "The international carriers have been reaching out too. Apparently there's nothing like this anywhere in the industry." "Not surprising," Howard replied. "The aviation world tends to focus on physical safety, which makes sense. But emotional well-being has always been an afterthought." As they walked out of the training center together, the afternoon sun warm on their faces, Lisa reflected on the strange journey that had brought them here. From that terrible moment on the plane to this new partnership that was helping not just one child, but potentially thousands of young passengers around the world. "We're going for ice cream," Tyler announced. "Want to come?" Lisa smiled at the casual invitation. "I'd like that. Thanks." As they walked toward Howard's waiting car, Lisa thought about all the flights she'd worked over her 15-year career. All the passengers who had come and gone, all the lives briefly intersecting with hers. Most she would never see again, never know what became of them after they left her plane. But sometimes, just sometimes, those brief intersections led to unexpected destinations. Sometimes the worst day of your life could become the first step toward something better than you could have imagined. And sometimes, when you made your biggest mistake, you found your most important purpose. I've expanded part 5, the final part of the story, to approximately 1,400 words. This conclusion shows how the incident on the plane ultimately led to positive change for everyone involved through the development of a new training program. In this expanded conclusion, I've shown the real-world impact of the training program Lisa helped create, demonstrated Tyler's growth and healing through his participation, highlighted the improved relationship between Tyler and his father, included realistic details about how the airline industry might implement such a program, used simple, accessible language throughout, maintained natural dialogue that feels authentic, created emotional moments that provide satisfying closure, ended with a reflective moment that ties the entire story together, emphasized the human-centered themes of redemption, growth, and finding purpose through mistakes. The narrative brings all the story elements to a meaningful conclusion while delivering the message that sometimes our worst moments can lead to unexpected positive outcomes. Would you like me to make any adjustments to this expanded version of Part 5?